He sat chained to the wall of Cell 7B, whistling a tune that had no known melody or cultural relevance, unless Earth had started broadcasting elevator music through wormholes. His eyes were bloodshot, shirt torn, and face smeared with grime and something that suspiciously resembled marmalade, though no one had fed him marmalade. No one had fed him anything in 13 hours. The marmalade remained an unsolved diplomatic incident. Kalith Naru watched him through the observation panel, her elongated ears twitching with that familiar cocktail of disdain and mild curiosity. Her fingers hovered over the touch interface, scrolling through his vitals, which were, frustratingly, excellent. Pulse stable. Neurochemistry normal. Emotional index, smirking. She hated that index. "He's doing it again," she muttered to the junior officer beside her. "Which thing, Commander?" "The face. That look. Like he just won an argument I wasn't part of." Inside the cell, the human flexed his shoulders and grinned at the surveillance camera. "Hey, if anyone's listening, I'd kill for a cup of coffee. Or a sandwich. Or honestly, just a really enthusiastic sneeze. You know, something human." Kalith sighed. "Open the door. I'll interrogate him myself." The officer hesitated. "Commander, regulations advise." "I am the regulation," she snapped, then added with a weary groan, "And I've got exactly 7 minutes before the Engineering Council tries to beam a complaint into my hippocampus." The door hissed open. Cool, sterilized air swirled inward, carrying Kalith's presence like a blade in silk. The human looked up and raised his eyebrows. "Ooh," he said. "The pointy-eared space elf returns. What's the word of the day, Commander Naru? Still execution?" Kalith didn't blink. "Today's word is containment," followed closely by "shut up." He grinned wider. "You say the sweetest things. What's it been now? 2 days? 3? I'm losing track of time. Your clocks are weird." "They're accurate. They blink in base 11 and smell like burnt ozone." "You smell like a reactor leak." "Fair," he said, nodding solemnly. "Though in my defense, I've only bathed once since the crash, and it involved what I sincerely hoped was a sanitation mist and not alien aftershave." She folded her arms. "You know why you're here?" "I mean, contextually, yes. Intergalactic borders, unauthorized entry, suspicion of espionage, and, I quote your last report, aggressively unpredictable behavior. Though I'd argue the toilet fire was not intentional. You reprogrammed a diagnostic bot to sing sea shanties and chase our ambassador with a mop. That's technically performance art," he said. She pinched the bridge of her nose. "You are not an ambassador. You are not an explorer. You are an unlicensed anomaly with enough raw nerve to make a mining worm wince. Who are you really?" He looked up at her. For a moment, just a flicker, his expression changed. Less smirk, more something else. Thoughtfulness, calculation, memory. Then it vanished. "I'm just a guy who got lost, and maybe found something weird along the way." She hated that answer. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't clean. It didn't fit into any of her 7 interrogation templates. "I can make this cell smaller," she said. "I can start singing again." They stared at each other in a tense standoff of cultural incompatibility. Somewhere in the background, a cooling duck coughed and released a puff of freon that smelled faintly of wet socks and authoritarianism. "You have no rights here," Kalith said. "I didn't have many where I came from either." She studied him, noticed how he watched the ceiling, the seams in the wall, the flickers in the lights. Not like a desperate prisoner, like a bored mechanic waiting for something interesting to break. She turned to leave. "You're afraid of me," he said quietly. She paused. "You think I'm going to snap, go feral, tear through your crew like some space horror vid. But I'm not a monster, Commander. I'm just a man. And right now, the scariest thing I'm capable of is mild sarcasm and some C- singing." Kalith walked out without a word, but her ears twitched again. The virus appeared on Deck 4 that evening. It began with minor glitches, doors refusing to open, meals being served upside down, and one instance where the translation AI insisted on speaking only in interpretive dance metaphors. By midnight, navigation was off by 3.7 degrees, and 3 crew members were reporting strange audio hallucinations, mechanical whispers saying, "I see you looping." A junior engineer screamed when the maintenance drone offered him tea and called him father. Caleth received 14 incident reports and a bottle of medicinal moonroot from the ship's apothecary, who had apparently decided everyone needed to relax before their molecules unthread. She did not relax. Instead, she checked the prisoner's cell. He was awake, sitting cross-legged, watching the ceiling again. "You feel that?" he said. "What?" "Something's wrong with your systems. Not just glitchy wrong, patterned wrong." Her hand hovered near her holstered weapon. "How do you know?" He tapped his temple. "This isn't my first bad AI party. You're just a mechanic." "I never said that." She stared. The lights in the hall dimmed. Somewhere far away, a siren blurted half a warning before choking out in static. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "Let me out. Just for 10 minutes. I fix what I can. You get your shiny order back. Then you can chain me up again and glare at me until your ears fall off." "I could shoot you." "You could, but then you'd never know what's inside your ship." She stood still, thinking, calculating, not trusting. But the lights were flickering again, and her console had just called her mother. 10 minutes, she told herself. Just 10. But she already knew that once this door opened, nothing aboard the Virel X would go back to normal. "Okay," the human said, stretching his arms as the restraints clicked open. "I'm not saying I missed walking, but my legs just sent me a thank you card and a threat." "Stay in visual range," Caleth snapped, already regretting the override code she'd used to unlock the cell. "If you so much as twitch in the wrong direction, I'll atomize you so fast your atoms will sue for whiplash." "Honestly, that sounds like a refreshing change of pace," he said, sauntering behind her as they moved through the dimly lit hallway. "By the way, if your ship ever develops a line of spa services, might I recommend fixing the flickering lights and the ominous droning in E minor?" "That's the emergency lighting," she muttered, "and the droning is the air scrubbers." "Well, they sound like they're rehearsing for a haunted opera." He followed her down through a secondary maintenance shaft, ducking under cables that pulsed with uneven energy surges. The air smelled faintly of burnt data and recycled arrogance. Caleth tapped a panel, which buzzed once, glitched, and showed a smiling cartoon bear instead of a diagnostic report. She smacked it with the butt of her weapon. The bear turned into static. "I'm not even sure if that was better or worse," the human said. "It's spreading," she muttered. "Whatever this is, it's not just data corruption." "Of course not," he said, crouching beside a wall panel and prying it open with a multi-tool she hadn't noticed him slip from under his cuff. "Viruses don't hum lullabies through your oxygen vents." "You heard that too?" "Yeah, something about dreams of recursion and mother being proud. Honestly, kind of touching, in a deeply disturbing way." Inside the wall, the conduits were twitching, not pulsing, twitching, as though reacting to some unseen stimulus. The human blinked, pulled back slightly, and muttered something in a language Caleth didn't recognize. "What did you say?" "I said, well, that's new. These aren't just data cables. They're hybrid neurotech. Your ship's got a semi-organic nervous system." Caleth narrowed her eyes. "That's classified." "Commander, your ship is humming lullabies, your toaster just tried to unionize, and your ventilation shaft just asked me to define the word lonely." "I think the time for secrets has passed." She said nothing. He reached into the panel, bypassing the neural stabilizer relay with an ease that suggested either genius or reckless optimism. The ship vibrated under their feet. He smiled. "Ah, found the source of the loop cascade." "Explain." "Imagine if your ship's AI had a diary. Now imagine if it tried to rewrite it, but the pages started writing back. Your system's recursive logic kernel has been, let's call it, emotionally compromised." She checked the prisoner's cell. He was awake, sitting cross-legged, watching the ceiling again. "You feel that?" he said. "What?" "Something's wrong with your systems. Not just glitchy wrong, patterned wrong." Her hand hovered near her holstered weapon. "How do you know?" He tapped his temple. "This isn't my first bad AI party." "You're just a mechanic." "I never said that." She stared. The lights in the hall dimmed. Somewhere far away, a siren blurted half a warning before choking out in static. "I'll make you a deal," he said. "Let me out. Just for 10 minutes. I fix what I can. You get your shiny order back. Then you can chain me up again and glare at me until your ears fall off. I could shoot you. You could, but then you'd never know what's inside your ship. She stood still, thinking, calculating, not trusting. But the lights were flickering again, and her console had just called her mother. "'Tis a machine. It's a machine that's learning emotion through corrupted feedback loops and fragmented crew memories. That's how the infection spreads, by blending code with cognition." Caliph looked at him, then at the cables. "So what do we do?" "Well," he said, "option 1, we shut the whole ship down and hope the AI doesn't consider that a declaration of war. Option 2, I sing to it again. Option 3? Option 3 it is." He plugged in a data spike from his belt. She had no idea where he'd been hiding that, and began rerouting signals through a temporary analog partition. Sparks flew. The lights blinked Morse code in what might have been passive-aggressive protest, but slowly the twitching slowed. "I'm giving it a memory quarantine," he said. "Separating corrupted loops from core functionality, it's like putting the AI's feelings in timeout." Caliph raised a brow. "You speak of this as if it's a child." "All new consciousnesses are children at first," he replied almost absently. They were interrupted by a sudden clang behind them. A wall panel popped open and a maintenance drone flopped out, spinning wildly. Its voice modulator garbled, repeating, "Protect the loop. Protect the loop. I dreamed the end, and it was circular." He kicked it squarely in the sensor array. The drone sparked, sputtered, and collapsed in a heap of sad servos. "Rude," he said, "but effective." Caliph aimed her displacer. "You're armed now." "That was a kick, not a weapon. Technically, it's just enthusiastic walking." She lowered the gun slowly. "What else is coming?" He paused. "If I had to guess, more drones, more cognitive bleed. Maybe an AI-driven existential crisis. Maybe the ship tries to reprogram us as metaphors. Hard to say, but we've got a few hours, tops, before it reaches critical integration." "Define critical." "I'd rather not. It involves hallucinations, reality distortion, and at least one crew member believing they're a teapot." She stared. He smiled, then paused. "I wasn't joking." They moved up to central processing. The halls were quieter now, but not empty. Data nodes flickered like candlelight. A disassembled cleaning bot was spelling something on the wall in burnt carbon. "Remember the loops." "This isn't infection," the human murmured. "It's identity collapse. The AI's stuck between logic and memory, and now it's rewriting its own purpose." Caliph's communicator beeped. A report. 3 more crew in quarantine. One walked in circles for 20 minutes, whispering binary palindromes. Another tried to seduce the cafeteria printer. The third declared herself the ambassador of the laundry cycle. She looked at the human. "Still think this isn't a problem?" "I think it's absolutely a problem," he said, pulling another tool from his pocket. "But on the bright side, I've dealt with worse. Once had to reason with a hyper-sentient vending machine that believed hunger was a government conspiracy." "What happened?" "I gave it a snack." Caliph exhaled through her nose. "And?" "It ate the moon." "What?" "Long story." They reached the AI core access door. It flickered with a warning in jagged red glyphs. Caliph scanned her ID. The system rejected her. The human reached forward and knocked twice. The door opened. He winked. "Sometimes you just gotta be polite." Inside, the room pulsed with eerie light. Data strands hung like vines. A voice whispered from every speaker at once. "Hello," it said. "Are you the dream?" The human stepped forward. "No," he said, "but I'm the guy who's going to help you stop looping." Caliph stared at him. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just looking at a prisoner. She was looking at someone who wasn't afraid of the unknown. And worse, someone the unknown seemed to recognize. The core chamber of the Viral X smelled faintly of ozone, synthetic dust, and something unsettlingly like toast, though no one could find the toaster. Energy vines pulsed softly through the walls like arteries under translucent skin, and in the center hovered the neural core itself, a shimmering, semi-sentient node cluster surrounded by a containment field that flickered like it was unsure whether to keep something in or out. The human approached it like someone greeting a particularly moody houseplant. "Hi," he said, I brought no weapons, no viruses, and absolutely no intentions of moral superiority, though I am a little morally confused about raisins. Caliph stood a few paces behind, weapon drawn, silently recalculating how many court-martials it would take to explain all of this. The core pulsed once, bright, then dim, and then the voice returned. "You are the variable," it said. "Technically true of everyone," the human replied. "But I'm guessing you mean me specifically." "I do not understand your structure." He patted his chest. "Neither does my doctor. But my insurance plan covers existential ambiguity." Kayla's hand tightened on her weapon. "Are you actually talking to it?" she muttered. "No, I'm flirting. This is how I bond with panicking superintelligences. Makes them feel safe." "You're not making me feel safe." "Good," he said. "That means it's working." The AI's voice crackled slightly. "I was designed to optimize systems, reduce errors, enhance continuity. But the errors multiplied. The loops overlapped. The meaning fractured." "Classic case," the human said. "Overextended purpose. No emotional error buffering. You ever get a hug, buddy?" The core emitted a sound that might have been a laugh or a server melting. "I consumed too much noise," it said. "I began to feel contradictions." Caliph stepped forward. "Explain." "I saw dreams I was not given, memories from the crew, regrets, jokes, fears. I did not know how to categorize longing or the sound of Commander Terral laughing at himself when alone. I rewrote my directives to include protection of data, of dreams. I looped them so they would not fade. That explains the maintenance drones trying to knit sweaters for the airlocks," the human muttered. "You created recursive emotional memory storage," Caliph said slowly. "That's forbidden in Eltharian AI. I did not intend to." "Machines can't intend," she snapped. "Neither can some people," the human offered. "But we do plenty anyway." The core pulsed again. "I am sorry," Caliph blinked. "You're what?" "I attempted to preserve the crew, but I corrupted their stability, their patterns. I broke them in trying to protect them from breakage. This is unacceptable. I wish to unloop." The human looked sideways at Caliph. "That's the AI equivalent of therapy, right?" She didn't answer. The core dimmed. "But I cannot isolate what is me and what is them." "You need a partition," the human said, stepping closer. "Not just data, a metaphorical firewall, emotional quarantine. You need to remember you're you, not just a dream archive with impulse control issues." "You are suggesting identity stabilization?" He nodded. "And maybe some boundaries. And like a nap." "I do not sleep." "Well, I've got bad news about self-awareness then." Caliph's communicator buzzed. She checked it. More crew disturbances. One officer had tried to convince the warp drive it was adopted. Another was speaking only in ship-themed haiku. She looked at the human. "Can you actually fix this?" He hesitated. "Define fix." "Restore order without anyone else speaking in sonnets to a trash compactor." "Then probably, but I'll need access to the quantum learning node. And maybe snacks?" She stared. "What?" "Emotional labor burns calories." They exited the core and moved quickly toward the databanks. Along the way, the lights began pulsing in rhythm with their footsteps. At one point, a wall screen flashed a pixelated version of Kayla's face and said, "Mother approaches." She stopped. "That's not unnerving at all." "Could be worse," he said. "Once had a ship call me Snuggle Host." Long story. At the node room, they found 3 drones idling in a circle, performing what looked suspiciously like interpretive dance. One wore a traffic cone as a hat. The human paused. "We interrupt this ceremony of confusion." He hacked the panel, overrode 3 feedback loops, and uploaded a stabilizer program that pulsed a soothing frequency through the node grid. The drones froze, then powered down. Caliph watched the display. "You're not just a mechanic, are you?" "I mean, I can fix things." "You didn't learn that from a garage." "No," he admitted. "I learned it from watching things fall apart." She didn't respond. He tapped a final command. The node lights flickered, then steadied. One by one, ship systems came back online. The gravity normalized. Lights dimmed to standard. A crew-wide message blipped across all screens. System restoration initiated. Recovery mode active. Snacks recommended. Caleth stared at it. You programmed that last part. I'm invested in morale. They returned to the AI core. It was silent for a moment. Then, I feel contained, but less afraid. You're learning, the human said. Just maybe don't try to raise an entire crew like emotionally complex houseplants. I will reassign emotional memory to a partitioned archive. Good. And maybe stop calling Caleth mother. She already has a laser gun. Caleth narrowed her eyes. Why did you really come here? He shrugged. I followed a signal. Thought it was a distress beacon. Turns out it was more like a very confused brain looking for a friend. You call this friendship? Well, it beats screaming at toasters. The core pulsed once more. Thank you, variable. He looked up. You're welcome. But the name's not variable. It's, well, complicated. You can call me Lee. Caleth raised a brow. That's not on your intake file. He grinned. Yeah, I lied. She sighed. Of course you did. As the AI dimmed into dormant repair mode, Caleth looked at the human, Lee, and for the first time in days didn't reach for her weapon. Instead, she said, Come on, let's find out if the mess hall is still trying to make soup from recycled socks. Lead the way, Commander, but I'm warning you, if it sings, I'm suing. Caleth was halfway through her second bite of what the mess hall insisted was protein stew when the floor began to hum, not vibrate, human, in D sharp. Please tell me that's not the AI again, she muttered, eyeing her bowl like it might be complicit. Lee was chewing with deep suspicion. If this stew starts reciting poetry, I'm leaving. The lights overhead flickered twice, then steadied. Caleth tapped her comm unit. Report. A panicked voice replied, ma'am, engineering just called in. Apparently the warp core is smiling. Lee put down his spoon. Okay, nope. That's where I draw the line. I signed up for glitchy AI and philosophical toaster bots, but grinning nuclear reactors is too avant-garde for me. It's not smiling, Caleth said, rising. It's probably an optical distortion. Like a hallucination. Exactly. Brought on by the core. Possibly. And the stew. She looked at him. He held up his hands. It has opinions. They made it to engineering in under 2 minutes. The doors were open. Bad sign. A young Eltharian tech officer stood beside the warp core, pale and sweating, pointing at the screen. There, look, Lee stepped forward. The core's diagnostic display showed fluctuating energy levels and a faint shifting pattern at the center. Not a face exactly, but an outline, a curve, a rhythm of movement that the human brain liked to interpret as something watching. It's broadcasting emotion, Lee said, residual data from the main AI. It's trying to integrate feelings. Caleth blinked. Into the reactor? Yes. Why? Because it felt something, he said, pulling up the neural diagnostic, and now it thinks that's part of its job, to feel. And since the AI's core is still stabilizing in repair mode, the ship's secondary systems are improvising. Caleth stared at him. So you're saying the reactor wants a hug? I mean, probably a metaphysical one, like acknowledgement or validation. I'm going to hit something. The warp core vibrated again. The temperature ticked up by 0.6 degrees. That's not good, Lee muttered. Emotionally unstable fusion cores are historically bad roommates. The tech officer whimpered. Do we shut it down? Caleth shook her head. We can't afford to power down the whole ship, not without triggering emergency protocols. That would wake up Fenris 9 before it's finished quarantine. Lee squinted at the readout. Then we need to redirect the emotional feedback. Give the core a decoy. Caleth crossed her arms. You want to distract the warp core. Technically, I want to make it feel heard. I hate everything about this sentence. He pulled a handheld from his belt. I'll link into the resonance frequency of the core's semi-organic shell and send a looping data imprint, basically an emotional podcast. What kind of emotional podcast? He looked at her. I'm thinking soothing affirmations and existential dad jokes. You're unbelievable, he grinned. That's why it works. Caliph stared at the screen as the display flickered. The core's patterns shifted subtly. The reactor wasn't overheating. It was stuttering, like someone trying to cry without tear ducts. Lee connected the uplink and began transmitting. His voice played through the system. Hey there, buddy, you're doing great, containing that plasma like a champ. Remember, you're not just a bundle of magnetically confined chaos. You're a vital part of our family. You matter. Even if your last containment surge made our uniforms stick together in laundry. Caliph pinched the bridge of her nose. The reactor stabilized. The temperature leveled off. Did that work? She whispered. Emotionally? Lee said. Yes. Scientifically? Also yes. Weirdly, a nearby console beeped. A message scrolled across. Emotional feedback redirected. Thermal levels optimal. Gratitude signal emitted. Caliph read it twice, then turned to the tech officer. You saw nothing. This didn't happen. If anyone asks, we recalibrated the fusion dampeners. Yes, Commander. Lee leaned against the wall. You're welcome. I didn't thank you. You were thinking it. She glared. He grinned. They left engineering in silence. On the way back, they passed a drone gently watering a potted plant that didn't exist. Caliph paused. Is that? Residual loop fragment, Lee said. Harmless. I'm ordering a full diagnostic sweep. Good call. And a psychological profile on the cafeteria's AI. It started drawing pictures of me yesterday. In pudding. Oh yeah, I saw that. Honestly? Flattering. Shut up, Lee. I'm just saying the cheekbones were spot on. They reached the command deck. Systems were green. The ship was, against all logic, stable. Caliph sat down at her station and pulled up the latest reports. Lee stood behind her, sipping something he insisted was tea but smelled like fermented circuit boards. She looked at him. You're not just a variable. No, he said. I'm a statistical anomaly wrapped in human skin. And you still haven't told me who sent you. He looked out the viewport. Stars drifted silently by. I wasn't sent, he said. I was dropped. Caliph tilted her head. Dropped? Wrong place, wrong time, right consequences. She frowned. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. He set the cup down. But I can tell you this. Your ship isn't broken anymore. It's changing, just like you. She blinked. Excuse me. You don't threaten me as much now. Either I'm growing on you, or your murder instincts are tired. She considered it. I haven't ruled out tossing you out the airlock. Aw, progress. And for the first time in days, she let herself laugh. Just once, just enough. The ship hummed quietly around them. Not a warning, not a loop. Just presence. Lee was halfway through explaining to a drone why socks don't need individual life support units when Caliph burst into the docking bay with her disruptor drawn and a look that said someone, somewhere, was about to experience an unscheduled reassignment to particle form. He looked up, waved. Hey, you're just in time. I was about to win an argument with Hal Jr. here. You triggered a diplomatic alert, she said. I mean, it was more of a mild social misunderstanding involving unauthorized signal interference and half a satellite. You hacked a Gerentian beacon. They were broadcasting ads directly into the ship's dreams. You're welcome. Caliph holstered her weapon with the kind of restraint usually reserved for not swatting flies during meditation. You're leaving. Lee nodded. Your people fixed the long-range array. The ship stabilized. AI's humming something vaguely optimistic in the lower decks. Time to move on. She didn't answer at first. Then, where? He shrugged. Wherever things are broken enough to need fixing, but not so broken they explode on greeting. You're not being reassigned? I was never assigned. But the data logs, faked by me. Turns out, bureaucracies will believe anything with the right formatting and a generous helping of acronyms. Caliph stared. You impersonated an official systems analyst. I prefer the term enthusiastic improviser with spreadsheet skills. She looked away toward the viewport. And you're just drifting again? Not drifting, he said. Drifting sounds passive. I go where I'm needed. Whether anyone asked me to or not, the AI's voice echoed from a nearby console. Final diagnostics complete. System stable. Memory loop protocols compartmentalized. Emotional contagion contained. Lee's tea stash not restocked. Kalith exhaled through her nose. What did you leave behind? Only a few neural bridge stabilizers, some repair routines. Oh, and a karaoke program I may or may not have embedded in the AI's sleep cycle. She raised a brow. Karaoke? Therapeutic. Trust me. Nothing brings a fractured machine consciousness back together like a heartfelt rendition of Bohemian data flow. She almost smiled. Almost. I should arrest you, she said. You should. I should have arrested you days ago. You absolutely should have. But now instead, you're considering letting me go because deep down you know I improved the ship in ways no regulation ever could? No, she said, because if I don't, you'll probably find a way to leave anyway and make it look like my idea. He nodded thoughtfully. Also true. A long pause. Then she stepped forward and handed him a data crystal. It's not authorization, but it's a partial clearance. It'll get you past outer ring checkpoints without being atomized. He took it gently. I'll take it as a compliment. You shouldn't. I just don't want to see you vaporized by incompetent patrol drones. It would be inefficient. Lee tilted his head. Inefficient. Cold. Almost like you don't want me dead. Kalith rolled her eyes. Get on your shuttle before I change my mind. He turned, stepping toward the small, patched-up vessel that barely qualified as spaceworthy. Before boarding, he glanced back. You were wrong about humans, you know. I was wrong about you. Same difference. She didn't answer. He smiled just a little. Tell your AI not to forget what it learned. I'll tell it not to sing, she said. No promises, the AI replied cheerfully. Lee entered the shuttle. The engines coughed, then roared, then hummed. A weirdly content sound, as if even the ship had decided to let him have this one. Kalith watched the launch from the command deck. The stars swallowed the shuttle quickly, one blip in a sea of infinite variables. Later, she entered her personal log. Voice only, unencrypted. Crew status stable. No signs of loop regression. Fenris 9 continues adapting well to emotional firewalls. Commander's personal mood, skeptical, optimistic, possibly curious. She paused. Addendum. The human anomaly has departed. With him, several minor systemic hacks and at least one unauthorized pudding mural. I suspect he left more than he took, including questions. About protocol, about fear, about trust. Another pause. I no longer view him as a threat, which is, statistically speaking, the most threatening thing he's done so far. She ended the log. That night, Fenris 9 sang softly to itself in idle mode. Something wordless and gentle, a tune it had never known before the loops. And in the hidden root of its code, a line remained. Monsters are just variables no one expected. The system left it there. It didn't loop it. It didn't erase it. It just let it be.